Perfect. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today at this great discussion that we will be having at the Washington Kurdish Institute. First of all, I would like to welcome our great speakers. That includes the president of the Washington Kurdish Institute, Dr. Najmuddin Karim, and also the former governor of Kirkuk province. Dr. Najmuddin devoted his life for the Kurdish rights, and we appreciate him being with us. I also would like to welcome Michael Mulroy, the former Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense on Middle East. Michael is also a senior fellow at the Middle East Institute and a co-founder of Lubo Institute that aims to end child soldiers. Michael is also a retired Marine officer. He also worked with the Central Intelligence Agency. He has great knowledge. He participated recently during the war on the ISIS terrorism in Syria. He has been almost in the entire Middle East and Africa. We appreciate him being with us. He's a very busy gentleman, and we are thankful for him for accepting the invitation today. We also have from France, University of Lyon, Dr. Fabrice Balanche, who is one of the most prominent experts on Syria. He has lived in Syria and Lebanon for years. He is former Hoover Institute fellow, an adjunct fellow at the Washington Institute for Near East Policy, WINEP. Dr. Balanche has tens of publications on the region and Syria. Thank you, sir, for being with us. We also, finally, we have Madame Zena Mohammed with us. Madame Zena is one of the very first Kurdish diplomats from Rojava, the Kurdish region of Syria. She continues, even now, she represents more than Kurds. She's a representative of the Syrian Democratic Council to the United States. She, despite losing her personal asset and interest by the Turkish-backed groups in Afrin when they seized her property and looted her factories, she continues to fight for her own people. We are thankful for her, and she will only enrich our discussion. We do have a great attendees, and that includes icons, experts, think tankers, media folks, and from Washington and from elsewhere, including Europe, Middle East, and Australia. Welcome. Thank you for being with us. We hope you'll join us in the future. We have a set of questions set prior to this event. However, I'm not going to monopolize the event with these questions. So feel free to raise your hand or ask a question. I'll do my best to combine if there's any repeated question or to address your question in the best way I can. Each speaker will have 10 to 12 minutes opening remark, and then we'll open it up to Q&A. Without further ado, Dr. Karim, the mic is yours.
Well, good morning, everybody. And I want to thank the distinguished panel members, all experts actually, and worked on the ground in Syrian Kurdistan or Northeastern Syria Federation. The topic of the conversation, of course, is governance in Northeastern Syria Federation. The governance there obviously has many obstacles. It's not so much the people who live there or the leadership of the SDF or the Northern Syria Federation administration. According to all the experts who have been to the area, they attest to the fact that the experience in Northeast Syria is such that it's unique to the Middle East. It involves all the ethnic and religious groups, and there is no discrimination based on gender, ethnicity, or religion. However, the obstacles that they face are manifold. Chief among them is Turkey, and the Turkish-backed jihadists or militias, who they call the opposition or the Free Syrian Army. The other obstacle, of course, is the Syrian regime itself, or Bashar al-Assad, and their policies, not just towards this administration, but also towards the region in general, in northeast Syria, especially the Kurds, over decades. It precedes this Bashar al-Assad to Hafiz Assad, and then previous to that to the Ba'ath regime in general. Then, of course, we have the Russians that are also a problem in northeastern Syria. Actually, the tragedy in Afrin started by Russia permitting Erdogan to attack Afrin, and now we have more than 65 to 70% of the population of Afrin who have been uprooted from their homes, and their homes are occupied by settlers from East Ghouta province, and these are the family of ISIS who have been evacuated by UN and other agencies and has been settled by the jihadists supported by Turkey in Afrin. And you hear atrocities. All these atrocities have been documented by human rights organizations, including Human Rights Watch and many other organizations. Just the last few days, we saw how a 13-year-old girl was kidnapped and executed. And then, of course, we move forward, and when the United States in 2018 declared withdrawal from the region, this was changed after pressure from different groups within the US, and it was delayed until October of last year. After a telephone call between Erdogan and President Trump, permission was given to the Turks to attack the area. And since then, Giresunspor and Serikani has been occupied by Turkish forces, and the atrocities continue in those places. And if we look at the areas that's still under the control of the SDF and the Northern Syria administration, you see the governors continues as it was before these occupation forces came and changed the status quo in the region. However, in Afrin and Serikani and Giresunspor, this is not the case anymore. It's governed by jihadi forces. Many Yazidi families, many Christian families of all denominations have been uprooted from their homes. They are in constant danger in Derek, in many other places that are still under control of the SDF, with threat from the Turkish government. Of course, the latest, it's actually sad, but it's a laughing matter, is accusing the YPG and YPJ for being behind the demonstrations and the Black Lives Matter in the United States after Erdogan's call with President Trump on Monday. And here we have Mr. Mulroy himself has been to Syrian Kurdistan and worked with the military there, and knows the sacrifices that they have paid and the small footprint that actually the US has in northern Syria. It doesn't only protect the people there, but it also serves strategic interest by preventing the Syrian regime from taking control of that area, the Iranian militias, as well as Iran itself, and of course, Russia and the Turkish invasion, which are colluding with each other and carrying out all these atrocities that's not in the interest of the United States. Some people compare US presence in Syria to US presence in Iraq after 2003 or in Afghanistan. Whereas in those places we have had hundreds of thousands of US forces, and the mission is totally different in those places. Whereas the mission in Syria, like I said, it's very small forces. They are not engaged in combat. It's advised and assisting the Syrian Democratic Forces. And not only that, actually they have helped to create the SDF by encouraging the YPG and YPJ and the PYD to incorporate other ethnic groups, especially the Arab tribes in the region that's under control of the SDF. And we can see the result of that with excellent governance, despite some shortcomings. Then we have to look at the role of the UN in the region. While the UNHCR is trying with very small staff to help the people who have been internally displaced or the refugees from the areas that has been occupied by the Islamist extremists supported by Turkey, there are still difficulties. The border crossing has been closed by Russia, which prevents transfer of aid from Iraqi Kurdistan to northeastern Syria or Syrian Kurdistan. And that has affected the humanitarian help. It has also actually affected the help with coronavirus. Unfortunately, the World Health Organization has been, is to blame actually for not being more aggressive in providing help to the authorities in the northeastern Syrian administration by channeling all the help to the Syrian government, which will and which has in the past not allowed any of that aid to reach the area under the SDF control. So it's very important for the US administration, President Trump, to actually see the importance of presence of the small US force as advisors in the region, and to help and work with the Turkish government about withdrawing from not just the areas they occupied last year after October invasion, but also in Afrin, and help return all the displaced people who are hundreds of thousands now in Iraqi Kurdistan and in other areas that's under the SDF control. Turkey is claiming by clearing these areas of the democratic and indigenous people, including Christians, Yazidis, and others in the area, that they will bring refugees from Turkey back. But these are people who have been who have been displaced as a result of Assad regime, and they need, if they are allowed to go back, and if they want to go back, they want to go back to their original places, not to come and occupy the homes and land that has been owned by the inhabitants of those areas that Turkey is now controlled with its proxies, and they have lived in those places for decades and even more than a century. I think I will stop here and allow other panelists to have more time with their presentation, and I'll be happy to answer any questions. And
thank you. Thank you, Dr. Karim. Michael, please.
Greetings, everybody, from the mountains of Montana. I'd first like to thank the Washington Kurdish Institute for hosting this, Dr. Karim and team. Thank you very much for inviting me. Thank you to the fellow panelists and everybody else that's joining us. I thought I'd start with talking about the security aspects of our conversation, since that's essentially my background, and with what's either going on right now or going to happen soon, which is the security dialogue, strategic dialogue between the United States and Iraq. It happens essentially for us mostly before an election, right? And this time is no different. I would say on that front, although I'm not a political person at all, I have friends on both sides, and I think that both sides will see the value in a long-term relationship between the United States and Iraq and maintaining a presence there. Where I think there'll be some differences will be with relationship to the policy against Iran and the maximum pressure campaign and how that would play out as it affects our continued presence in Iraq. As we've seen in the past, and everybody no doubt in this audience knows, the decision to precipitously withdraw from Iraq has had consequences. It led, as most think, myself included, to the rise of the physical caliphate of ISIS, and it was something that we all had to deal with. And as somebody who has been responsible for these type of operations, I can say there was really no alternative, and there was no better partner than our Kurdish partners in the YPG, which eventually became the SDF, and as Dr. Karim said, a multi-ethnic organization. They were the best partners in their capability and willingness. And quite frankly, if you don't have both of those two aspects, you don't really have a partner. I think they showed their willingness as example by the 12,000 some odd fighters that were lost in this fight, and their capability is obviously really something to admire. I think that partnership was a model for how we do these type of operations with our partners. And again, I'm speaking from somebody who spent most of my career doing those type of operations. One thing that I like to point out is the National Defense Strategy developed under Secretary Mattis, which is still obviously our strategy in the Defense Department. One of the key pillars is building and maintaining partnerships. Again, I think this was a model. I think if we can't get this right, as speaking as an American, then we're going to have a very difficult time in the future developing partners that find us reliable. As a interesting note, I think you actually mentioned that I was involved in a documentary last week. I'm not plugging it, I don't even have a title yet. But we were talking to people who had actually done partner operations for the United States in the late 1950s and 1960s last week. Very remote parts of Western United States. Interesting enough, all 4 interviews we did, unprompted, brought up the SDF and how we needed to do better by them. And I thought that was really fascinating. I mean, these gentlemen are in their 80s, and they obviously didn't talk to each other about their conversations, so I didn't think they did. It was so significant that we're going to keep it in the documentary. So I think that's important to note, that this has definitely had reverberations across the community that is involved in partnership operations, be it in the US military or in my old organization, the CIA. That said, I think it's also important to note that the United States and the DoD specifically did understand and address the concerns of Turkey, which is obviously a NATO ally. In my opinion, we were doing everything to address those concerns, and quite frankly, the mechanism that we had developed, I thought, did just that. And our presence there, I thought, did a lot of what they were concerned about. I think it was, to the extent that the United States did, I think it was an absolute mistake to greenlight the operation in northeast Syria. That said, I would have to give a lot of credit to the men and women in leadership positions on the ground out there that took that circumstance and still managed to maintain a partnership that continues to this day. And I think that is really, I mean, we do a lot of work when I was there in Washington, but quite frankly, it was the people on the ground in leadership positions that made that work, both the US and the Kurdish side. So going ahead and where do we go from here? 2 things that I like to point out. The first, from the US side, is back in 2018, we as a government came up with what's called the SAR 2018, so the Stabilization Assessment Review 2018. And I bring that up because that was an agreement between the Defense Department, State Department, and USAID that in areas where we had military deployed, our military deployed, we should put a concerted and a robust effort at stabilization. I don't think we have met the goals that were laid out in that assessment. And I think if we can't do it in Syria, which means a longer term presence, which means resources to do this and the legal authority to help stabilize these areas, to bring back economic opportunities for the people to want to return, then I think we've completely missed our goals there. Also, the issue of the prisoners that are now in the custody of SDF, it's something that General McKenzie spoke about last week, I believe, at the institute that I'm a fellow at, the Middle East Institute. This is something we keep bringing up, but it's something that has to be addressed by the international community, because this is an international problem. In fact, I think up to 2,000 of them are actually foreigners. That can't be just laid at the doorstep of the people who live there who already have enough to deal with. And I think that has to be something that the UN gets involved with and comes up with a plan. And lastly, the camps, and we've just had considerable discussions with the State Department and the United Nations about, for example, El Hall and the issues that are going on there, and how we come in there as an international community and develop a program that can give, especially the young people, the children, a different perspective and the ability to eventually have a vocation so that their lives aren't headed down the wrong path. So I think I'll stop there. I just wanted to throw those out there and hear what kind of questions you have. Again, thank you for inviting me.
Thank you, sir. That was very helpful and useful, and I'm sure there will be a few questions in regards to the US's role with the SDF. Professor Balanche, please. Yeah, unmute yourself, please. You're muted. Yes, it's good.
Fine. Okay. So we know that the goal of Turkey is to create an Arab belt in northern Syria from Idlib to Tigris. And for that, Turkey is using different tools, military offensive in Afrin or Tel Abyad, Ras Al Ain, of course. And we have seen that the Turkish proxy is expelling the Kurdish population from his homeland. And also Arab people suspected to be close to the self-administration, as in Tel Abyad, where they arrested the famous sheikh last month. And the goal of Turkey is to send people, Syrian refugees, to settle in this area. But it's not the Syrian refugees who are in Turkey that they are going to send to northern Syria. But they prefer to use the Syrian IDPs living in Idlib or in Al-Bab area, people who are in danger, people who left Ghouta, who left homes, for instance, and were under threat of the coming back of the Syrian army, who are perfect candidate to come to Afrin or to Tel Abyad. Of course, the families of the fighters of the so-called Syrian National Army, the Turkish proxies, have the priority occupying former Kurdish houses and land in Afrin and Tel Abyad. There is no more Kurdish people in Tel Abyad and Ras Al Ain, but still in Afrin, who live under Islamist militia occupation. And the ultimate goal, of course, is to expel them thanks to what we can call a white ethnic cleansing. It's not an Anfal like in Iraq, but by a crime, by harassment, as Saddam did in northern Iraq in the IT. It's possible to expel the Kurdish population, and telling that these people decided just to move outside of Afrin, and but if they decided to move, it's for their protection, because they are in danger in such area. During last battle in Idlib from December 2019 and March 2020, nearly 1 million of people were displaced in Idlib area. And according to OCHA, UN agency, nearly 500,000 went to Afrin and northern Aleppo. Just in Afrin, we had 200,000 newcomers coming from Idlib, occupying the Kurdish area. And we have seen also transfer from Idlib to Tel Abyad and Ras Al Ain through the Turkish territory by buses. It's most of them are family of the Turkish proxies who are occupying this area, and this is create also a reaction in Tel Abyad and Ras Al Ain among the Arab population against this newcomer who are occupying Tel Abyad like a foreigner. I have many people who tell me that proxies in Tel Abyad and Ras Al Ain are like ISIS, foreigners who are ruling the area and stealing everything. So I think that the next target for Turkey seems to be Kobane, because it could, if the Turks take Kobane, they can join Al-Bab area and Tel Abyad, sending thousands of IDPs from Idlib, which is becoming a new Gaza Strip, to Eastern Euphrates. Turkey, for this project, asks money to European Union to build infrastructure for this new settler. But because Erdogan has big ambition to create new villages, new cities to implement these people, and is using blackmail to Europe. If you don't give me money to implement this population in northern Syria, I will let them to go to Europe. And we have seen in last March this new wave of refugees going to the Greek border. Fortunately, with the virus, Europe decided to close the border, and it was stopped. But it could come back because Erdogan want to take money to Europe for this project. Of course, European Union refused to pay, but the European aid to Turkey to the Syrian refugees permit to Turkey to save its own money and supporting the economy of the occupied territory in northern Syria. Because of course, if we want to have the support of the local population, he has to give them financial support. But moreover, Turkey has a strong economic leverage against northeastern Syria. First, the official border is closed, blocking normal trade. But even if Turkey let its proxies doing informal trade, making a lot of money with this business, the humanitarian aid coming to Nes is coming from Erbil. Does it mean wasting money in travel costs and administration? This blockage from Turkey is directly to kill the economy of northeastern Syria. But the most important leverage that Turkey has on northeastern Syria, it's the water resources. We have seen that Turkey is able to cut the water for Hasake because Turkey control today Ras Al Ain pumping station, and they can cut the Tamar. That does it mean you have 500,000 of people without water? But there is decades now that Turkey is pumping the groundwater at the north of the border, reducing the level of water for agriculture in northeastern Syria. And this was one of the reasons of the water scarcity in northeastern Syria. When we had the drought between 2005 and 2010, for instance, it was a complete disaster. And it could be, again, an economy in the area. So it's enough to have an agreement of Euphrates River with Turkey. And we know that Turkey didn't respect this agreement. Probably US and European Union should impose to Turkey to respect this agreement, because the Euphrates River is very, very important for the economy of the area. But also, I think that we have to take care about the pumping in the groundwater at the north of the Syrian border, because the level of the groundwater decrease in Kamishli, in Hasakeh, and it's a threat for the agriculture, and it's a threat for the population. This is how Turkey is using the water resources to also provoke a migration of Kurdish population from the area. For US and for European Union, I think it's not enough to provide humanitarian help to this population. The northeastern Syria needs this humanitarian help, but it's not enough. We should also invest in infrastructure, irrigation, refinery. You have oil in the area, but you have no refinery. The refinery, it's a small one, will produce bad quality with a lot of pollution, because during the Ba'athist regime, it was prohibited to build industry in northeastern Syria because the Ba'athist regime wanted to keep this area under its dependence. To provocate also the migration of the Kurdish population abroad, or in Damascus, or in Aleppo, where we thought that the Kurdish population will Arabize better than if they stay in North. And if we want to support the autonomy of the area, we have to invest in basic economic infrastructure to break this dependence from Western Syria, and also from Turkish leverage on the area. 2 years ago, I wrote an article for the UN institution. The title was "US military in Syria must rely on political determination and a Marshall Plan." A Marshall Plan, like in Europe, the Second World War, is very, very important if we want seriously to support the autonomy of this area, because the war is also economic. Europe have to support the development of the area, and also use economic and political leverage to prevent the area from the regime and from the Turkish level to oblige the water, because water is a basic need of the area, and today it's using by Turkey. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Balanche. And now, Madame Sinam, for her remarks. Please unmute your mic.
Good morning, everybody. I would like to thank the Washington Kurdish Institute for organizing this panel. And it's my pleasure to today to participate with the really significant panelists here. I would like to thank them also. First of all, here we are talking about the administration. The administration in North and Northeast Syria, it has been established to avoid the chaos, the mess, which was in all the region in Syria. In Syria, we know there is a diversity, ethnic diversity, religion diversity. So in our region, in the north east of Syria, all these components together, like Arabs, Kurds, Christians, Syriac, Turkmen, Armenian, all they come together to administrate and manage this area together, working to promote the real democracy, which was not found before during the Assad period. So they work together to promote this real democracy based on equal participation with all these components, based on the gender equality, which give the women the rights to be in every institution in this administration, so that it reaches about 50% the women participation in all the administration, as well as based on decentralization for in our region. Decentralization, we ask it for all over Syria, actually, as a system, a new system for Syria. And of course, it depends on the diversity of the culture and ethnic diversity. All this makes this administration survive till this, time, till this day, actually. The woman has a very significant role there in social life, in political life, in diplomat, and even in protection life. As you know, everywhere in the world, they are talking about the Kurdish women fighters who could defeat ISIS and protect all the humanity actually there. We, as the SDF or the administration, roughly controlled about a third of the Syrian territory, with about 4 million people living there. And this administration, they are providing all the services for these people, 4 million people. They providing with, services with water, electricity, sanitation, education, and even education, which is the first time in the history of Syria, we have the education in 3 languages, which is very significant. We have the Kurdish language, the Arabic language, and the Syriac language, and which make all the components there happy to speak in their own language, mother tongue, which has been prohibited during the Al-Assad regime that time. Also, they provide them with the healthcare. As we could have these services for our people, as well as the most important issue, which is the security. To provide the security for this region, it is not easy during this war in Syria. Security, safety through the SDF and through also the internal, forces, internal security forces. So this is what we have till now, and really we could manage it somehow, even though we have many obstacles, we have many challenges, which is internal challenges and outside, challenges. Let us talk about the first challenge. Everybody, they heard about ISIS, the attacking of ISIS to our region, to Kobani, and then the other places, and we could really liberate all these Syrian cities from the brutal and the most brutal and the group in the whole world that threatened not only our Syrian people, it threatened the whole world, even the United States, in Europe, and everywhere. So for that, we could defeat it, of course, with the help of the global coalition led by United States. This is, an issue which was, as an obstacle or as a challenge for us. But after post-ISIS, we have another challenge, which was the detainees, the ISIS detainees, and the ISIS, fighters who has been, arrested or been captured there in the presence. The foreigner fighters, who are now about thousands of them, I can say 12 of them, they are foreigner fighters, not from Syria, I'm talking. And as well as the others, families of the ISIS who are now in the camp of Al-Hol. They are another threat or another challenge for the administration. So who is responsible for all these dangerous fighters in the presence and these dangerous families also as well in the camp hall? It is the administration. So the administration is having a very heavy burden in order to protect the region from all these, people. Actually, the whole of camp, it is just like a ticking time bomb. I don't know what will happen if we could not have any support to have for these things. Recently we have a lot of problem happen in the presence of ISIS fighters or foreigner fighters. They try to run away, but the SDF, with the help of the global coalition, they could overcome all these things and could control the ISIS, the presence. But still we need some support, financial support, in order to secure this presence. These presence, they are not qualified for such dangerous fighters, prisoners in our region. And this is what, it creates a lot of problem for and threat to the people there in the region. So this will come again after post-ISIS. I'm talking the resurgence of ISIS again, and we witnessed that recently happen. There is a lot of threat to the people of the region. There are a lot of threat to some tribal there people who are asking, threatening them, whoever working with the SDF, whoever working with the administration. And we witnessed many assassination operations happen also for many figures, Arab figures in the region, Deir ez-Zor and the other, only because they are working with the administration or they are working with the SDF. So all this really challenges for us. So it makes recently the SDF to have launch a campaign for the sleeper cells of ISIS who are very active in the region. And this campaign, it was really very successful. They could arrest a lot of them recently. I think the campaign will be continued in the next phase. The other, let me talk about the other challenge which we are facing now as administration is Turkey. Everybody knows what Turkey did. The invasion of Turkey in 2018 to Afrin, the invasion of Turkey to Ras Al Ain and Tal Abyad, occupying these territories. And look at this now region, before the Turkish occupation and after the Turkish occupation. Before the Turkish occupation, Afrin was safe, secure. The administration goes in a very good way as a democratic administration. The woman has a great role there. The economy was so good there. And it is safe for even the IDPs who came from the other part of Syria, like the Arab IDPs. They were afraid to stay with the regime areas, so they come to Afrin. That time, about 400,000 they were living in Afrin. Some of them, they live in the camps, the other, they were living in the city and working, and they have their business, But after the occupation, what happened? The Yazidi villages being destroyed, the Yazidi people being threatened. Some of them, most of them, they left Afrin. So after the occupation, about 300,000 of Afrin being displaced, left Afrin, and the other who stayed there under the threat of the kidnapping, killing, and even the Yazidi being threatened to be Muslim in order to force them to be Muslim. And they moved and, turned their houses, to be a mosque. You imagine that. So the freedom of religion, which was in Afrin, now it has got no more. No more freedom of religion, which we consider is a part of the human rights. But it is now not anymore, existed in Afrin. Recently we heard, I think Dr. Najmuddin Karim also, he talked about that recently, what happened for the women in Afrin being kidnapped in the prison of Al-Hamzat, and they found in the prison naked, which is humiliating the woman. It is a sexual assault going on in Afrin for the Kurdish women in Afrin. But unfortunately, everyone turning blind eyes for that. So we need to highlight to the violation which going on in the region, which is occupied by Turkey, and the militia, which is the Islamic groups, most of them jihadist group, let me say, jihadist group working there in order to kidnap the people. Ethnic cleansing is going on there. Actually now, the majority of the Afrin now, they are Arabs, they are not anymore Kurds. And I'm not against Arabs. We live together and we have really a good work together. And as I said, we have 100,000 of them in Afrin before the occupation. But now the people who are in Afrin, they are only there to kidnap, to kill, to robbing, looting. Even the church, the only church was in Afrin, they looted, and the Christian people, they fled away, and they came to, some of them to Kobani, and the other they went to Aleppo city. They are afraid of these people. They came there to Afrin and they say, we are coming to kill the Kurds, infidels. So these words, it means that they are really jihadis, and they are not anymore representing the Syrian people there. The other things I can, even talk about, the same happening in Ras Al Ain and even in Tel Abyad. The other challenge is Turkey also. I think Mr. Fabrice, thank for him, and even talking about Turkey, how is using the water to prevent the people of Al-Hasaka from the water, especially now during Corona, which is another challenge for us. The Corona, of course, the administration, they made a lot of, measurement, good measurement for the overcome Corona. So we have curfew, we have staying at home, we prevent gathering, and we have, a lot of the administration make a lot of, support for the people who lost their work now and staying at home. They pay for them the bill of water and the bill of electricity. All this to provide the people with all the services to overcome the coronavirus period. Of course, the corona is very now dangerous if it breaks down out in the camps, and that would be actually very dangerous there. The other, can I continue?
Yeah, sure. One more minute. We have a lot of questions.
Okay. So the other challenge is the Caesar Act, which has been as a sanction to all of Syria. And we are, of course, we are a part of Syria. So all the Syrian people, they've been actually suffered from this Caesar Act, because now we are seeing how the dollar's been very high and the Syrian pound been collapsing. And this is which make the people very difficult for them, unable to buy whatever they need, as they have very less money, And this is another challenge, because we are also dealing with the Syrian pound. So we are influenced by this sanction on our people. So in this even regard, our administration now, they have established the group for the crisis group in order to avoid some economic collapse in the region. Of course, after the Ambassador William Roebuck, he declared that the Northeast region will be excluded from this sanction, but still we need to know how can we be excluded in that. But as we know, we are trying to have, support for the people, for, maybe increasing their salaries and to watching the prices in the markets, all this. This group or crisis group now during this period, they are working very well in order to avoid a lot of difficulties in the economy of the north of Syria. Let me see if we, So I'm asking here, how can we, of course, we have another challenge is the threat of the regime. Of course, we started, we were open to have a dialogue with the regime, even the dialogue with the other democratic groups of Syria, of the opposition, who are really democratic, who accept the others, who have this, accept the diversity of Syria. We need to have this dialogue with them. We are open to that. And we are open to have a dialogue with the regime also. Unfortunately, recently the regime closed the door and they were not ready for that, but still we will be, trying our best to have this dialogue in order to avoid any more bloodshed in the area. So okay. Now you can see how our region, or the north of Syria, northeast of Syria, you can see many forces, powers are there. So Russian are there, the US are there, the regime are there, and even the SDF, which is controlling the whole region there. So how we are dealing, yes.
Sorry to interrupt you. We do want to give some space to our attendees. We have questions submitted to us, if you don't mind, and you should be able to explain more. But I would like to turn a couple questions to Michael, if you could be kind to answer those. One of them, many think that the type of the US deployment in Syria, fighting ISIS, was an ideal. I know you touched about the presence of US in Iraq and its importance, but the type of the US deployments in Syria is an ideal for future US involvement fighting terrorists. Do you agree with that? And if you could elaborate, how was it? And the other question, same to you, is in case, as Professor Balanche explained, in case of more Turkish invasion to the Kurdish region, including Kobani, would the United States and European nations be able to depend on the Turkish-backed groups to fight terrorism and have a stable region?
Okay, so to the first question on whether the SDF-US model is a role model, yes, I think so. Again, we've had partner operations all over the world. It wasn't just in the recent war on terror, as I mentioned. We were studying our operations in Laos, for example, in the early 1960s. It was because of several factors. One was the capability of the SDF, and particularly the leadership component of it, which is largely the YPG. And our ability to bring in what we call enablers, which is combat advisors, all seasoned by the wars that we have been involved with in Afghanistan, of course, Iraq, and also the ability to call in very precise air when it comes to supporting ground operations. Those two things are our intelligence apparatus, which is very good, as I think everybody knows. So those three things really do enhance a partner who is capable. And I think that those combinations, when it comes to the actual components of the partnership, key to its success. I would like to address, because I've heard some comments in the past about how, when it came to partnership, our Kurdish partners were simply fighting for their own interest, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's why the United States fights. I do push back on that. I think that our partners fought well beyond what would necessarily have been in their immediate interests in their region, and fought in areas together that were really helpful to the overall mission, but not specifically to them. And I've heard that a few times. I just want to touch on that. Your second question, I think, was whether the Turkish-supported opposition forces would be effective against the fight against ISIS. Not as effective as the partnership that I just mentioned. So, I don't think we ever want to dissuade anybody from helping defeat what's already been described as a brutal force and a brutal oppressive regime that was ISIS. So, it wouldn't be my first, second, or third options when it comes to that. I think for the United States, we need to accept the fact that we got to stop looking for every off-ramp in conflicts. We owe it to the people who have sacrificed in the current one, and anybody that comes after us that would have to pick up the fight if we prematurely departed. I think people miss a lot of the success the United States, quite frankly, has had in reducing our presence. I mean, at one time we had 150,000 troops in Iraq, I think it was like 2008. Now we have 5,000, a little over. So, I mean, that is an important step forward, and it's important to note all the successes we have, not to be overconfident, but I think the United States should look at these conflicts for what the conditions on the ground are, for maintaining partners that matter and that are very effective for both groups, and start looking for how we can actually stabilize these areas collectively as an international community so that we don't have to have a perpetual kinetic operation.
Thank you, sir. I do have a lot of questions for Dr. Balanche and Dr. Karim and Ms. Zena. So, Dr. Karim, there is a question about more Kurdish internal affairs. How do you evaluate the relationship between the Kurdistan Regional Government of Iraq and the Kurdish-led autonomous administration, especially after the referendum in 2017?
Well, first of all, I think the situation today is much better than if we look at it 2 years ago or even a year ago. The US and France have been involved in trying to bring the actually different Syrian Kurdish group within the context of Northern Syrian Federation together, so they'll have one position. One thing that has been actually very disappointing with regard to US policy and European policy or coalition in general with regard to Northern Syrian Federation is till now they have not been able to find a seat to represent Northern Syrian Federation within the Geneva Conference, which is absolutely mind-boggling. You know, 1/3 of the Syrian territory is controlled by these forces. It's the best run, the best administered, and the safest, of course, and except the areas that Turkey occupied after 2018 in Afrin and also 2019 in Serikani and Grespi. The relation between the Kurdistan regional government and the administration in northeastern Syria has improved. There is direct relationship between General Muslim Kobani, who is the head of the SDF and president of the Kurdistan region of Iraq. But new obstacles have come. Like I said, the border crossing has been closed actually by Russia, which is preventing aids, whether it's humanitarian aid, medical aid, food, and other things, to come to northeast Syria, to the part that's under the control of the SDF. Before the relationship were not so good. We hope that this negotiation between the Syrian Council and the Northern Syrian administration will come to a good resolution. There has been indication by General Muslim that progress has been made, but they don't have a choice. The Kurds have no choice, whether it's in Iraqi Kurdistan, whether it's in Syria, they have to be together. Our enemies always get together whenever they see any opportunity for the Kurds to get to their rights and all that. And with regard to the United States, I think with the European Union, they have to push for representation of the SDF or the Northern Syrian administration to be present in the Geneva Conference. They have to do that. They also have to recognize, I think Michael alluded that anyone cannot fight ISIS like SDF did. When you talk about the Hamza Brigade or the Sultan Murad Brigade, these are offshoots of Al-Qaeda, which became Al-Nusra, now it's Hayat Tahrir al-Sham. These are terrorists themselves. They are not friends of the United States. They're not friends of liberal democracies anywhere. They are the antithesis of evil and animosity towards human rights and human beings in the world.
Thank you, Dr. Karim. Dr. Balanche, there is a question about the Caesar sanction bill on Syria that will be effective soon. How could that affect the autonomous administration area? I know you spoke about it a bit, but would that also affect the areas occupied by Turkey?
Yes. First, the direct consequence of the Caesar Act, it's the devaluation of the Syrian pound. We have seen last weeks that the Syrian pound is going down. It's because people are anticipating also new sanction with the Caesar Act. And because in northeastern Syria, people are using the Syrian pounds and are paying with Syrian pounds, you have this problem. And I hope that the self-administration could control the price, because in the Syrian regime area, there is no more tamwin, there is no more control of the. That's why you have in Sweden and part of Syria hold loyal stronghold, because people are fed up about this bad living condition and they don't know where is going going down the Syrian bonds. Secondly, northeastern Syria produce a lot of wheat, cotton, and they sell a part of this wheat to the Syrian regime. And if the Syrian regime has no money to buy the wheat, it's a big problem. And the farmer needs fixed price. If you have no view on long term on the price, you will not be encouraged to produce your wheat and to be paid in Syrian pounds today. You are not sure that next year you will have enough money to buy I would say in English buzzer for the next crops. So it's a big challenge for northeastern Syria because they don't have their own money. In the Turkish area today, the Syrian area under Turkish occupation, they are using the Turkish pounds. What does it mean? That you have more stability in the price, and also because this area are now very well connected to the Turkish economy. So this will affect a lot northeastern Syria. It's so difficult today to send money to Syria. Even NGO have so much difficulties to send money to pay their staff in northeastern Syria because of the sanction. An European bank, an American bank, you tell that you are going to send money to Kamishli or to Hasakeh, it's Syria. So if it's under sanction, they will not do any difference. They don't want to take a risk to send money to Syria and to be under penalty by the US government. We have the famous example of the BNP, Banque Nationale of Paris, who had to pay $10 billion of penalty to US Treasury 5 years ago. Nobody wants to take this risk. So the Zaza Act will affect also northeastern Syria.
Thank you. I know we're beyond the noon. We had a hard stop, but briefly, Madame Sinem, there's a question about your job in DC and how to defend the administration against the Turkish, what they call, unquote, propaganda, unquote, for linking the SDF to the groups that hold protests in the United States.
Yes, I'd like to say that, of course, what's happening in the United States, it is an internal issue. We are working here as a SDC office in Washington, D.C. with all our colleagues here in order to strengthen the relation and make it more and more with the U.S. administration in order to defend our people, to defend the system, the model which we created in our region, the administration of the region. Of course, we have here one of the challenges, maybe here also in the DC, we have the lobbies of Turkey lobbies, which is very strong. It's after us wherever we go. They have many propaganda, which is a fake news, let us say, about the administration. Actually, the administration is doing its best to improve and to go forward, listen to the people, know their problems, solve these problems. This is very good issue for the administration, I think I can say that. But as you mentioned recently, the Turkey or they connect what's going on in Washington, D.C. with some groups. It is not true. Actually, the people who, I don't know in which way they are connecting us to them, But as I see, they are connecting with some groups who are Antifa or whatever is it they are fighting there. Actually, we didn't receive some people as an organization. We didn't have like that. We have some people who came voluntarily in order to fight the terrorist group of ISIS there. And this group, actually, they are fighting with the Americans also as the SDF, and they are fighting to protect actually the national security of the Americans, because they are under threat of the ISIS. So whoever come there, they are not as an organization accepted there. They are like, we can say, independent. Some of them, they come just in hearing about ISIS, and they come to fight with ISIS. And after that, they were with the American, even they were there, everybody aware of that. That we are against racism, racism wherever it is. Of course, even here in the United States, they are against that. Nobody accepts that wherever it is in our region and in wherever is it. So we don't have any relation to do with this, what's going on in the United States. It is an internal issue, and the people of America, they are very aware of their law and of their, what's going on. They can actually, solve their problem.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I would like to give each guest a minute or two for a closing remarks. I have a lot of questions, but I might apologize for not being able to take them all. So, Dr. Karim, please.
Well, thank you. I'd like to thank all my colleagues on the panel for a valuable contribution. What we need to do is the partnership between the SDF and the United States and the coalition forces should stay and should be strengthened. I think Erdogan's tricks to be recognized for what it's worth, including his illusion about SDF being involved in Black Lives Matter and the demonstrations there. And one thing I like to make a comment about, PKK has also always been used as a villain in all of this because of that's what Turkey wants. I think the United States and European Union has to revise their policy. We removed the Mujahideen of Iran from terrorist list when they actually killed Americans in the 70s and 80s. PKK has never attacked America, has never hurt one American. And PKK has been fighting for the rights of the Kurds. They have changed their policies from independence to basically human and cultural rights for the Kurds. I think it's about time. And if this is changed, I think it will help for the US and Europeans to have more leverage on them and also work with Turkey trying to solve the Kurdish issue in Turkey. That is the only way you can solve the problems between Turkey and Syria, between Turkey and Iraqi Kurdistan, and the whole thing. So, and thank you again for organizing this event.
Thank you, Governor. Michael?
Well, again, thank you for inviting me. This has been a really interesting discussion. Hopefully your participants think so too. I would like to say that one of the strongest pillars of the US-Kurdish relationship is the relationships that have been built in the last 20 years, especially in the military, and CIA, and the State Department. And that's something that money can't buy. So I think that is going to carry through in the future, and it's going to really benefit both people. I would like to reiterate that I do think that the SDF was a model, and quite frankly, the only effective tool in fighting ISIS in that region. And the United States should maintain its presence there, maintain its partnership, and if anything, maybe double down on the stabilization efforts in the region. They should also push for a seat at the table, as Dr. Karim already mentioned. Lastly, I would just like to say that one of the key pillars in being able to maintain that presence is going to be a presence in Iraq. That is something that's in the interest of the Iraqi people and the US So we need to ensure that that is known, and that both sides understand the importance of that. So again, thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you, sir. Dr. Balanche, your closing remarks, please.
Yes, what can we tell today? But I think that today everything seems to be in standby in northeastern Syria, probably because of the virus. But be careful, because it's a storm. It's the peace before the storm. We know that Idlib and northeastern Syria issue are linked. Since 2016, we have a bargain agreement between Turkey and Russia. I give you a part of Idlib, you give me a part of the Kurdish territory, or you let me do what I want to do in eastern Syria. Today in Idlib, we have no more fight, ceasefire, because Erdogan wants something else. Kobane, Kartani, we don't know what he wants, but he wants something. And the West must be very, very careful, because the goal of Erdogan is to create this Arab belt on northern Syria and to expel the Kurds. It's very clear, and he will not stop, except if the West has huge leverage on Erdogan, on Turkey. It's very, very important to have that in mind. And be careful also because of Geneva process. Because if you are not invited at the table, it's because you are the meal, you are the menu. This is what the Polish people told after the Second World War. They have not been invited at the peace talk after the defeat of Germany, because the goal of Stalin and you have this was to destroy Poland and to occupy Poland. So be careful, if you are not invited, it's because probably you are the meal. And it's very important that the self-administration will be invited to Geneva process. It's a protection also.
Thank you, Dr. Balanche. Madame Sinam.
Okay, thank you. I would like to say that the model of the administration, which has been now survived till now, should be strengthened, should be supported, to have the stability in the region, to be at the table of the negotiation. And Mr. Balanche, he said, if we are not invited, so we'll be a meal. If we are being a meal, unfortunately, we will not be a meal. I don't hope that, but if like this, we will be very hard meal. We will not be easy meal, to digest. And so we have to be at the table, negotiation table. That's very important to solve the Syrian problem, to have the solution for the Syrian problem after 10 years, Another thing, to support this region, politically, to recognize it as an administration, as a good model to be implemented in all over Syria, and to even to have the humanitarian issue to open the border, which is an Arabia. Till now, it's closed for the United Nations humanitarian support for the region. So I would like to ask, to open these borders also especially now after the Caesar Act. So we need the support from the international community, from the United States, not only military. We need the support politically and diplomatically for this, solve our problem and solve the problem with the Turkey also, which is a great issue for that. And the only issue that Turkey is threatening us, only they are threatening because the Kurds, it is not true. They are threatening the Arabs also there. They are threatening the Syriac are there. All the people there under threat. So they have to find the solution for these issues together. We are ready to have a dialogue with each part in order to reach a good solution for all the Syrian people and to stop this bloodshed. I would like to thank you all and thank you so much.
Thank you, all of you, Dr. Karim. and Michael and Dr. Balanche and Madame Sinam. I appreciate all of you being here. This event will be also broadcasted on YouTube this afternoon. So once again, thank you for being with us. We shall close down now.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Bye-bye.